Recently I made a little YouTube short I called Sweet Home Andalusia, where I took the Sweet Home Alabama riff and then tried to capture the groove of that riff using the Andalusian cadence. And the reason why I thought that was a fun idea is that when we play Sweet Home Alabama, we use our thumb like this, and then strum our index finger if you're playing it without a pick, nylon string, Spanish guitar style. And you find ourselves doing something that we do all the time in Spanish guitar stuff, where we play a thumb rest stroke, and then index finger downstroke and up. So if you can already do that, you can play Sweet Home Alabama. So in this video, I want to take you through all those tasty riffs from Sweet Home Alabama and show you how to play them for nylon string guitar. And this will be example 5,337 of how we can take a popular song and adapt it for Spanish guitar and really have fun while we're working on essential techniques that we need for nylon string guitar. First, let's look at the chords of Sweet Home Alabama. This is a classic Mixolydian progression. We got a D major chord, then a C chord, then a G. And you might think, well, that looks like a 1-4-5 in the key of G, and it is. But if we make D our tone center and really hang around that note, it sounds like the Mixolydian scale. So I just played that chord progression with the A form of D, the A form of C, and the E form of G. Later on in the chorus, we're going to see those played kind of that way, but as power chords. But for now, we're going to play a D like this. We don't have to play an F sharp up here. In fact, we're going to use that middle finger to play C in a second. So we can play D this way without ever referencing the high E string. So technically that's a D5 chord. There's no third in it. Then we're going to go to C, keeping that D note. That's C add 9 we could call it, or C add 2. And then to a G chord, still with that ring finger on that D note. Okay, so before we get into the real riff, let's just do the strumming thing that I was doing a second ago. All that's happening here, and you can do this with a pick, obviously, that's how they're doing it. But I think anytime that you hear this bass chord thing like this, which we can play with a pick all the time, especially on steel string guitar, we hear that quite a bit. But that fits right, I think it just dovetails exactly into how we play on nylon string guitar, in Spanish guitar, where we play a thumb and then index finger downstroke. Classic maneuver. So we got our D, we're going to play the thumb twice. I'm doing rest strokes with the thumb, that's where we rest on the string below. Gives it a little more punch if you want to do that. But the problem here is we have to go and immediately kill it. That's a 16th note, followed by a 16th note rest, and then a longer note. So we go as quickly as we can, kill it, and then play it again. Then with your index finger, we can sit on a bass string and then strum. I said earlier, we don't want to hear the first string, so you could get sloppy here with your ring finger. Just, I'm touching the first string there. Or you could even touch it with one of these fingers, your ring finger maybe, and strum it like that. But if we hear the high E string, it doesn't sound bad. I think it's cool, but we don't hear it in that song. Then go to the C chord I was talking about earlier, C add 9. Same thing, right? Thumb, thumb, and we're trying to get that space between the rest. You can also get that by relaxing over here, like going, and then I think on the actual record they're going very quickly. But here we're just gonna go kill it with your thumb by getting back to the string or relaxing over here, or I recommend doing both just for extra insurance. And then to G, same idea. Strum twice. So the interesting thing I think about this progression is that it's D to C to G, and it's definitely, I'm going to say absolutely D Mixolydian, but we would expect to hear D longer, but G is the longer chord. I think that's kind of bizarre. Maybe you can explain that to me in the comments. But Sweet Child of Mine does the same thing. D, C, and G again. But I definitely would say that the D is a tone center in that song, as it is here in Sweet Home Alabama. If you play nylon string guitar, the three most essential techniques are picado, rasgueo, and arpeggio. Check out my free workshop below where we do a deep dive on these three techniques, and I give you a great drill that combines them all together and gets you playing this correctly in very little time. So Some options on that strum would be to add in a couple of upstrokes if you wanted to. So a minute ago I just said thumb, thumb, strum. Great place to start. Thumb, thumb, strum. Next chord. And then again. But we can add some upstrokes. Notice how I'm touching with my pinky the high E string so I don't hear it. If we hear that string, like I said, I still think it sounds great. But what I did there was thumb, thumb, strum, up, and then up quickly just before the next beat with my index finger. Or we can do this. Doesn't sound as much as what they're doing on the record. I think the first thing is better. So you can throw in a little hammer on here as you go back to the beginning of the progression to the D note. So the A string, hammer on the 2nd fret, and then play the D string open, and that's the beginning of the progression again. Okay, once you can do that, then we can play the opening riff. We really have to begin with being able to play these chords before we arpeggiate it and do this. Okay, let's look at that riff now. There's a couple of ways we can do this as far as the right hand goes. We're going to start with the thumb exactly the way that we did a second ago. Okay, got that out of the way. Then with your ring finger, this is my suggestion in like true classical guitar style. We're going to go ring, middle, index on the notes that you're already holding here. I'm on the 2nd string here with my ring finger, and then I got my middle finger. These are free strokes, and then index. So I end up playing my index finger on a string that my thumb just played. So that means we're going to change our position just slightly after the thumb. And then we have a quick note there at the end. Going right to the next chord. Now here we can play that last quick note, could be the open A string like this. So with my thumb there, I played quickly that to there. That's pretty tough. Playing a rest stroke with your thumb and then going up to the string above the string you just played and also playing a rest stroke, that's hard to do. Going rest, rest, upward, it would make obviously more sense to go to the floor because that's the direction you're going in. But if you do that, it's great practice for your thumb. Or we can do this. And then stretch out here. I just went ring, ring, and then stretched my index finger out here. My left hand came off here, or the middle finger came off. Remember, I'm keeping this down. And then there. Back to the beginning. Now right there, instead of doing an arpeggio, we can do a strum or a block chord. Just to mix it up, I did a block chord there. Okay, here comes a really cool hammer-on pull-off lick. Now notice there, you don't have to, but I'm using nothing but thumb rest strokes on every single note. Luckily we have slurs in there that give us a little time to maneuver. So play the 5th string open and then hammer on the 2nd fret. Then play the next string. Instead of hammering that on, pick the note, articulate it with your thumb, and then pull it off. Open again, so we go the other direction. Then we go back to this B note, and then with our middle finger now, play this A, 2nd fret of the 3rd string. I think it's important that we do a rest stroke here because it's so articulated or so accented on the record. And then pull it open to the open G string. Gonna jump with your thumb. The whole lick is. It would also sound fine to go like this. Do a hammer on and a pull off there, gives you a little time to get to that. I'm talking about the thumb there. And then. Okay, what do we have so far? Now, if you got the strum / chord progression that we had at the beginning down, the next part, you've already got it. We just do this. Okay, we already know how to do that. So back to the beginning. Or do it again. You can begin there with an arpeggio or strum it. Definitely need to strum right here. Now we have a super cool lick. Now that is tailor-made for us to play picado, which is index and middle rest strokes, only on the 3rd string here. And we have pull-offs again that make it easier on the right hand. Here I'm using just the middle finger. And on the record, I believe they bend this, but we don't want to bend ourselves out of tune, so we're going to slide up 2 frets. We play the open G string, 2nd fret, pull it off, go to the 4th fret, pull it off, play that string again, the open string, then go to the 5th fret, slide it to the 7th. But these all need to be absolutely even and uniform 16th notes. What happens next is such a great practice for our thumb. We need to be ready to start the riff again. It's not really the riff, it's just the chords that we did at the very beginning, but your thumb needs to go. That needs to happen absolutely instantly after we did this slide. So if your thumb is here, which is a great default position for the right hand, having your thumb on the 6th string when it's not being used, great place to keep it. But in this case, if we're here at that moment, we're going to be late because our thumb's going to have to travel all the way to the 4th string. So we need to be ready for that. So I can start here, but just a little bit before, our thumb needs to be thinking ahead and getting to that string. There's that hammer on. That's a great little riff that you're going to hear all over the song, even on the piano. Instead of going open A string and hammering it on, we're going to play B flat. It's easy enough to do all thumb rest strokes. Here's a nice, easy thing to do with the thumb. Thumb rest stroke, slide it. Because I did a rest stroke, my thumb is already on the string, so just play the next string. I did a rest stroke there as well, and now I'm ready to go on the next string. So rest strokes with your thumb towards the floor really set you up for playing that next string if you need to play the next string. Such a bluesy, country-ish little thing there. With a flat 3, G major chord. G major would be root, major 3rd, B. To a 5th, we go root, flat 3, and then correct the 3. You can hear that later on all these chords, especially on the piano. So that's the intro of Sweet Home Alabama, but we still have a super tasty lick coming up. But for the most part, this whole song is just D to C to G, but we're gonna see at the end of the chorus, there's gonna be a quick C to F. I mean, C we already played, right? But a normal C to F, and then we're back to the beginning. Check out this part. That's built upon the same exact chord progression. And you saw at the end, I did our little slide lick there. So what's happening here, theory-wise, it's just the same chords. Here is, if I'm stuck, let's say, in the 7th position, and I still want to play this chord progression, a D chord happens at the beginning, so this is D. But if I wanted to, that's really hard to play, right? The G form of D looks like a G chord, but I could play it like this. And then I could play C this way. That's the G form of C. And then we could just play a regular G, right? And that's what's happening in this riff. Now, he's playing with a pick, so he's gonna go like that. But that's pretty quick to do. You could try that with your thumb, and that would be a great, great practice, going down, up. We don't often do that. That's like Alsapua technique. But pretty tough to do, to go down, up, down, to make everything sound as strong as it should. So what I'm going to do is just do a double hammer on. I'm going E to F sharp. That's the 7th fret of the 5th string. 8, 9. And then I play this little, smush this guy in, and then relax it. And that's how we get that 16th note rest that I was talking about earlier. Here, of course, we could do both with your right hand as well. Kill it over here. But easy to do here when you're barring something. The one good thing about barring something is that you can get an instant rest by relaxing. So there's that. Then come back to this F sharp note and slide it backwards. Everything here, just like before, is consistent, uniform, constant 16th notes. Now here I'm going to hammer from the 5th fret back to the 7. Just a C chord, that's all that is. Now here, go back to this E note and just slide it downwards. Just slide it to nowhere. And what that means is we don't want to hear it land on any note in particular. We just somewhere along the way, let up on it, and you can touch the string with your thumb. That we don't want to hear it going anywhere, really. Then we have this guy. And we can go thumb rest stroke, slide it, index middle, then play them both together, let them ring out, and then this low G, and if you can squeeze these two fingers in between the fret, give it some vibrato if you want. Next time around, the same thing happens, but we can play harmonics right there. The strings 4 and 3, 12th fret, or you could slam it with your index finger there. You could even get a B in there. It's a G chord that's happening right now. The G chord, G major chord built into the guitar on these 3 strings. These are such fun riffs to play. Let's look at the chorus now. This is the part of the song where it really sounds like Werewolves of London. Now it's not just that, there's some tasty little things happening in there as well. But let's first get this down. So we have the 5th fret of the 5th string, and this is the power chord here. So I'm on the 7th fret of the string below it, the 4th string. And then we're gonna play, that's a power chord, so we would call that D5. And this would be D6, I suppose. That's a 6th in there, although there's no 3rd in the chord. Sit your thumb on the 6th string, which I said is such a great place to be. And I'm trying to mute just by lightly touching every other string below that I don't wanna hear. At least the 3rd string. So play down with your index, and then relax it by stopping, squeezing, and then squeeze again and go down. And then we're going to play up on that pinky note, and then back to a downstroke on the normal power chord. Down, down, up, down. Do the same thing on a C chord on the 3rd fret. Do the same thing on G now. Of course, you're going to have to take your thumb off, slide it up a little bit. We can still touch the wood though with our thumb. Now here's a great little riff. We can hammer it like this, and then hammer the next one, and then pull that off. Or we can go kind of like the beginning little riff there. And then when we get to the C note, like I was saying earlier, squeeze these 2 fingers in. This gives you more strength there. And that's a perfect place for vibrato because that's what they do in the song. So that's tricky too, going from this thing with your index finger and then immediately playing with your thumb. Now here we have an awesome thing. Just on the guitar we're going. And that's so interesting. That's a kind of a banjo thing happening there. It's groups of 3, but we're still playing in groups, rhythmically in groups of 4 16th notes. I'm playing the open D string. We're gonna add a bass note to it in a second. But we go open D string, then hammer the 2nd fret. And I use my thumb there for the initial note. Then your index can play here. And just do it a bunch of times. And then slide this. Now, the reason that I use my index finger on the C is to get us back where we started, so we can do this. Here's the first one. Then the next time around we do this. But when we play fingerstyle, classical, Spanish guitar, whatever you want to call it, we often try to add as much as we can, not just the riff in this case, but can we add the vocal melody? We're not going to do that right now. But we can also add the chord. So the guitar is going, well, that's over a G chord, so another guitar is playing a G there. So why can't we just do this? So I'm playing the thumb on that G, so just leave your G down the whole time, your middle finger on the 3rd fret of the 6th string, G. And then now I'm going to change my fingers here because my thumb is occupied, and I'm going to go index and middle, and play your thumb every 6 notes. That transition back to the main chord progression. So let me know in the comments if you have any trouble with this. This is a great one. There's so many awesome songs, not just rock songs or not just guitar songs. It could be anything from all over the world we can play on our nylon string guitar. And even we could even do this. Why not? Some Rosquillo techniques there. And this brings to mind this song. Here's another Mixolydian in D. That was nothing but my index finger there. Or we can play the melody up here. Want to know how to play that one? Check it out right here.